guests today are two of the most interesting people I have had on this show. Scott Christian, founder of Hilltop Studios, and Matt Bernard, the studio's writer and game designer. And what makes them so special is they didn't come up from the traditional game background, but instead they came up through theater, writing plays, building characters, and learning how to let a scene breathe. And when they moved into the games industry, they brought all of that expertise off the stage and onto your screen.
I think your game design and what you create is a marketing activity.
The first result was Lil Guardsman, a paper-please-like deduction game with a Saturday morning cartoon soul. In the game, it won awards for voice acting, it was critically acclaimed, and it has a community that still talks about it to this day. And for their second game, they decided to flip the script and walk away from the cartoon style and go right into gothic horror. Now, on the surface, Curse of Resthaven is everything Lil Guardsman isn't. It's dark, it's atmospheric, but underneath it all is the same DNA. Lead with story and find the mechanics that make it all sing and come together. And that's what we're going to unpack in today's episode. Things like why a genre pivot doesn't mean abandoning what made your first game work, how every mechanic in Curse of Resthaven was built to serve the mystery, not just exist alongside it. The real production discipline of scoping something that is ambitious without letting it spiral, why they bake streamer variability into the design from day one, and why finding the right creators for your game will always beat chasing the bigger ones. So my friend, join me on uncovering this mystery of Hilltop Studios and everything that they were building for Curse of Resthaven. Welcome to Freaking Cool Indies.
First and foremost, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out of your day and joining me here on Freaking Cool Indies.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, absolutely.
Lil Guardsman is an award-winning, or was an award-winning, paper-please style game that had a bright, cartoony tone, where Curse of Resthaven is a very gothic roguelike with a 7-day loop. So for anyone meeting you guys for the first time, why that jump? Why not just stick it and make it easy and stick with Lil Guardsman too?
Well, I can't remember who said it. I know this quote gets thrown around and is misattributed all over the place, but there's this sort of apocryphal story, and I think it's like a AAA developer talking to an indie being like, all you indies are the same. You spend years building something really cool, it goes well or it goes really well, and the second it ships, you do something completely different, and you disregard all of that learning, and you disregard all of what you've built, because we all have ADHD and we all pivot really hard and really fast away from the thing that we've just been building. I don't think this is that. I think, yes, there are things about Lil Guardsman that are so different to feel like diametrically opposed to Curse of Resthaven. But as we prep for the demo and we're playing it over and over, I keep having moments of being like, oh, this feels good the way that Lil Guardsman felt good. I mean, subject matter and tonally, it's a completely different game. Lil Guardsman is a Saturday morning cartoon come to life, and it leans hard, I think, and we didn't mean it to, into its sort of a cozy game vibe. I think it's very accessible and very cozy. This game, we're riffing on like Haunted Island, Mysterious Island, Edgar Allan Poe. It's sort of Slay the Princess is one of our touchstones, but it's more of a genre mashup, but it certainly will not appeal to all of the same players. But I think there's an overlap between horror and cozy, especially with a game like ours, which isn't an action game. Like, it is a narrative game. It is one that's very accessible to play, even though the subject matter is completely different and more challenging. So I think there's more shared DNA between the two games than people would expect, though I guess we'll see when it comes out what people say.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I completely agree. I personally think we're up to our same old tricks. It's just aesthetically different. If we were going to say make Lil Guardsman 2, what would we do? We'd want to interrogate the people and find out about them. And one thing Lil Guardsman always wanted to explore, but it was out of scope then, was more town exploration, more wandering the sprawl and stuff like that. So with Curse of Resthaven, you're interviewing people, you're interrogating them to find out the secrets they hold, and we have town exploration with great art. I absolutely am just crazy. And we have a fast travel system in it, but some of the QA feedback we've been getting is, I've been skipping that just to walk around and see the art. So I think it's the same old tricks for Hilltop, just different package, different holiday.
Yeah, I mean, this may not be the tangent you want me to go on, Mike, but I'm going there anyway.
Please.
I feel like with my original co-founder of Hilltop, something we thought about was we both grew up loving narrative games. We loved the sort of golden age of adventure games. So this is the 80s and 90s with Sierra and LucasArts, and then the myriad games sort of in that vein. And then Telltale had its resurgence, but it's really hard in 2026 to sell and produce just a straight narrative game. So with Lil Guardsman, our MO was we're going to tell this story, sort of an adventure game like we love, but what else can we sort of include in the core loop that's going to make it pop and sort of distinguish it from its peers? And with Lil Guardsman, we saw that there was a niche and an underserved market for Papers, Please likes. And what's been cool is we weren't the first. The first was Papers, Please, but there were other sort of riffs on that genre. Since Lil Guardsman came out, there have been even more. So it's been surreal to show up in other games' reviews when they're talking about this is good like Lil Guardsman or this is not as good as Lil Guardsman. But I think that was sort of the DNA for Curse of Resthaven, which is we knew we wanted to tell a like gothic, dark, creepy, dark fantasy mystery. And then we thought, okay, so like based on the things we know about the characters and the plot, what are some mechanics that will lift that and that will make it more fun, make it more interactive? So in our game, you play as the fledgling or new governor of this far-flung colony. And we were looking at games like Darkest Dungeon, games like Loop Hero that have that sort of you build town, you do things in town, and then you go out. And in those games, it's combat. We were thinking, okay, we don't. Hilltop may do a combat game one day. A lot of the games I love have violence in them.
And we'll have an interview. You did Kurt. Now you're doing an action.
Now you're doing an action game.
Pivoting again. Yeah.
That's going to be for the next recording as you guys go into a full-fledged 2D side-scrolling fighting game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Instead, Again, I think we lead with story and world, and then we think the next thing we think is like, what is the mechanic that's going to make that pop? So as the new governor, we got into sort of like colony sim, trading, and then a really sort of weird and wacky sort of card choose your own adventure thing. And it's these sort of systems playing together that is, I think, twice as complicated as Lil Guardsman, if not more. So we've been pulling our hair out, trying to make sure these different sort of mechanics all play well together. And I think just in time for the demo, it's all starting to really sing. So I'm proud of where it is.
And how did the actual mechanic design come out? So how did that decision go of like where to double down on and kind of what mechanics to be building?
Honestly, our tech director and our lead programmer at Hilltop, his name is Adolfo. Our team is 4 of us are in Toronto, and he's actually based in Mexico. And he joined our team for a corporate project, and then helped us finish Lil Guardsman, and then continued with this. His superpower is he's a rapid prototyper. So he's literally like, oh, I get what you're going for. Let me throw something together and we can play it tomorrow. So I'd say that characterized the early stages of production, which was trying things, not over polishing, seeing what was fun, seeing what clicked, and then sort of moving on quickly. Again, trading was a core idea, but it's funny I've looked at our pitch deck prototype recently. Trading is so different now than it was then. Then it was closer to sort of a more 4X sort of spreadsheety game. It's become more of a potionomics, reciteer, haggling sim. And I think the discovery was like character and connection was so important in every other aspect of our game. We wanted that to be in the trading. So instead of it feeling like you're trading with these abstract nations who have resource needs, you get to know the traders and you get to know their preferences. And that's how you beat trading. It's like the more you know about these traders, the better deals you can get. So, I mean, we started knowing like trading was true from day one, but how trading worked changed. Even interrogation, like how we thought that was going to work day one has changed. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, in my mind, all the mechanics obviously serve for the enjoyment of the game. We knew it was going to be a mystery. We knew we were going to write a story that you had to dig and search for the right clues for the next path forward. And things like trading and, town building, upgrading, things like that, all, help serve that in their own right. They're these strong, developed mechanics, but it all kind of leads to that because, if it's just interrogating, that's not just going to be fun. And if it's just, I need a resource to then trade, and rather than just finding it or making it a reward, we wanted to make getting those a puzzle within itself. And so there's just different blooms of puzzles kind of all over leading you down to the ultimate ending, which is really neat.
I think we've done a pretty good job of like the game is suggesting that you pursue all directions at once. So like if you neglect a third of the game, you can only get so far. We're having to picture the person who literally ignores everything but trading and just stockpiles, and then creating the gate for that person where you can't keep going if you're trying to sort of min-max the game that way. Or the player who's like, I'm going to ignore upgrading, I'm going to ignore trading, and I'm just going to interrogate everyone in town. And
to a point,
like Mike said, and it's there on our Steam page, it's a time loop game. So you could do that. You could spend game hours just exhausting all the questions.
Learning everything,
And I mean, I think that's okay. I think the game suggests sort of a balanced path. But yeah, gamers are weird. I'm weird. The way I play a game, I'm sure, is not the way developers intend for me to play the game. So I think even with the demo, it'll be neat to see how folks attack it.
Yeah. I'm sure, like, again, I know the core demo is not out yet at the time of this recording. I've had a chance to play it, but even in the playtest, I'm sure there's people who just, like, you look at their stats and you're just like, I don't know what the heck this guy ended up doing, just going and again, like, spending 40 hours talking to every single person, and it's just like, come on, keep moving along. That's awesome. And have you guys, one question that I wanted to ask you, because obviously the writing and voice acting and everything in Lil Guardsman is top tier, once again, award winning, if you will. How has it been kind of switching writing for comedy to maybe writing a little bit more horror or, like, mystery, if you will?
It's been a treat, I will say. I come from a theater and comedy background, and I've written comedy horror pieces, but the emphasis wasn't on horror. It wasn't meant to scare. It was kind of sending up various horror mediums and things like that. So writing for horror was a newer task, something to dive into, to learn about. It was exciting. It wasn't, I can do this, in my sleep. Really had to dive in and then learn what made things tick. And the one thing I discovered is that writing comedy and writing horror, they're neighbors. They kind of share the same timing beats. With a joke, you get through the setup too fast, and then the punchline, it's not going to be funny. You take too long with the setup, the audience is going to know the punchline. And same with horror. If you do something quick and then trying to scare you, it's not going to work. And then too long, the audience sees it coming. And this game isn't really like that kind of setup and pop-out horror by any means, but just the laying out of information of what the audience or the player digests, what they understand, and then providing them with a hook or a twist on that idea. The rhythm is the same for horror and comedy. So it was really neat to swap, banana peels for severed arms, I'll say.
And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how horror gamers receive our game, because it really is like, when I say horror, I mean like curled up by a giant fire in a Victorian mansion with a creepy Edgar Allan Poe book. Like it's not Resident Evil. There are, I think, moments that are horrifying and upsetting.
Oh my God, yeah.
One of the sort of core creative mandates that we've found early was relentless beauty and creeping dread. So for the artists, that it needs to be inviting and it needs to be gorgeous, and then there always has to be something off. There has to be something in every background that gives you a sort of WTF moment,
just sets you off, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's. I don't think there's anything like it, and I also think that all of the things we love, players will recognize. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I see a little like a cup of that game in there, and a cup of that game." It's, I don't know. I'm excited about it, and just in terms of the pivot from comedy to think. I think first you just need to like hone in on your characters and their motivations and like the core of the story, regardless of the genre, and then you can sort of edit to tease out the right flavor, if it's funny or it's horror. What's cool is we didn't have a copy editor on Lil Guardsman. That's an upgrade for this. I just did the copy edit, and I got some grumpy notes being like, you don't know how to use semicolons. So we've got a copy editor working on the game, and something I've charged them with is to take opportunities to tighten and take opportunities to make things weirder and darker. So it's neat that like Matt and I have done our best to make things dark and disturbing and weird and cool, but in this edit to have it like lifted up even more has been really cool. So it's this of final collaborator on the writing.
Very, very, very cool. And Scott, as the co-director, I guess, and like business owner of Hilltop, obviously you're wearing so many hats, and you have to kind of draw that fine line between creativity, but also keeping the studio financially healthy. So how much of that, I guess, weighed in the initial decision of the pivot and then going down the route of what ultimately ended up being Curse of Resthaven?
Sure. Yeah. It's like there are things I like about being a founder and being a studio director, but it's generally not the part I love. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm really I'm a doer, I'm a worker. So the other things seem like I think of that stuff as being in support of I just want to get to work. I just want to build my team and make the game. But yeah, it might be interesting to folks. So we shipped Lil Guardsman. I think it did quite well for like certainly for a Canadian by Canadian indie standards. And my co-founder at the time and I went to the following GDC. We shipped in January, and then we went to the next GDC with a prototype for a much bigger game. We said, okay, we've done it at this scale. Let's do something bigger, something more ambitious, and that's something that Matt worked on, and it was a really cool sort of isometric Disco Elysium like with vampires and film noir Hollywood. And that game is now being made by someone else, which is really cool. There's a, but yeah, we went out and like I think one of my superpowers is I love connecting people. I love meeting people and making genuine connections with folks in the industry without an agenda. I like our community. I really love the people who make games. So at that point, I had connections and people played the prototype and people were like, this is cool. You've proven that you can build something, ship something, and manage a budget. But what we heard at the time is like, no one is funding at this level. And it was that awkward, like, I feel like that sort of beefy indie budget. And I think what we've seen in the last couple of years is publishers who used to fund at, let's say, $500,000 are now squished down to 250, and the 250 publishers are squished down to 1 to 150. So there's this like it's our industry is on fire. That's not news to anyone watching this podcast. On fire in a bad way, not in a good way. So yeah, it was interesting to go out with something that people liked, but that was at a scale that we just couldn't find a home for it. But we did hear from a lot of those folks, yeah, but do you have anything at the same scale as Lil Guardsman? So I think Curse of Resthaven is a lot more ambitious, and I think it feels like a bigger game. I mean, it's riskier because it's more ambitious, but I think the potential of it is greater because it's more ambitious. Yeah, we went back out to all those people and said, okay, here's something we're just as excited about. That's again more in the neighborhood of Lil Guardsman, and
Nice.
thankfully we were successful with that one. But yeah, in terms of the studio head stuff, I think I've had to sort of learn as I go. I think when I came to this from music and from theater. I was not like, that's my background I was a creative professional before. So yeah, it's been a bit of a trial by fire in terms of creating like workbacks and budgets and like market validation stuff. But it's been fun, and it's not magic. Like, it's hard and it's work, but I think it's stuff that anyone can learn. And if it's a barrier for you, you just need to find that person that can support you. So like I think Curse of Resthaven sort of first came out of my brain, but it is good because of the 5 people that are making it. There is so much of each of the individual team members' DNA in their area, but also like we have a really blurry, like some of our best narrative beats came out of our art team. I feel like we weigh in on the art.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to have to give everyone a game design credit because we are all like playing in the sandbox together.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. It's a headache at this stage of the process where like at a meeting recently where I'm like, okay, we're now at the point of no new ideas. Like there is literally only X number of months left. We now need to just make it as it is. Hope it goes really well. We can iterate on it after launch, ideally. But
that's what Scott's really good at, keeping it within scope. If I was at the wheel, I'd be like, yes to every idea. Let's stop for ice cream. Let's go to that amusement park. But with Scott, it's like Batman. It's, not the hero we want, the hero we need. And to be like, no, we can't do that idea. And I'm like, I understand. But yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. And it must be so exciting exciting and terrifying to get to that stage of game development when it is no new ideas, right? We have everything locked in. Now it's about polish. Now it's about cleaning. Now it's about, really, really locking in that fun. It must be very exciting. But again, at the same time, you're also like, I'm sure in your head, there's so many more things that you want to add or iterate or, continue to include within the game itself.
Yeah, I'd say the new ideas that we are still entertaining are the ones that are coming out of playtesting. So playtesters, when they have problems or issues, and I mean that's within reason. Like we have playtesters who have wouldn't it be cool if ideas, and we got no time for that. But yeah, I think now the voice that's sort of driving this next leg of production is an external voice primarily.
That is a perfect segue actually to go into the demo, because once again, when it comes to a narrative style game, I do think it's very different from something that is just like, action adventure, something that you can kind of just drop someone into and they can get going and figuring things out. So when it came to creating the demo that's going to be, fully public facing, how did you guys decide what slice of the game to show first, especially a game that, really does expand from where a player would begin?
That's such a smart question, and we agonized over it because it was
Yeah.
like, because there is a scale of demo where you don't want to give away the farm. You don't want someone to
Yep.
play it and be like, I get what this is. I don't need to buy it. You want to tantalize the player. So you want it to be short enough, but it also needs to be coherent. And I think the challenge with our game is because there are these complementary mechanical systems, like you need to make the player feel like they're getting good at them. So that takes time. Onboarding takes time. So I'd say that's been the biggest thing. But yeah, do you want to talk about how we found the shape?
I mean, obviously from a narrative mystery point of view, you want to give them just enough to hook them, but not enough to make the answers too obvious or to give away anything. But I remember one kind of question that we were playing with the demo is how to incorporate the feel for the time loop. Because the main game, it's going to be 6 days of full town interaction and then going back in time. Demo, we had tossed around doing a true Groundhog Day, just one day and then it resets, one day and then it resets. But that wasn't enough time to let the other mechanics breathe for you to explore and build. And, you can always put your foot on the step and never actually climb the stairs. So the demo right now is, I'm allowed to say? Yeah. It's 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days,
Yes.
but then you do that 3 times. So you get an idea of how the time loop works, how to build through each loop, each, reset in that way. And it's feeling really good.
Yeah. And the other thing that's like different than the main game is in the main game, you sort of have a couple of primary objectives, but then you organically discover the quests and the leads. Like it's clear in the trailers, you're looking for your lost niece on this cursed island. So that's the primary driver. And then as you start investigating, the other sort of leads and quests open up. Because we're creating this sort of tight, sort of finite experience instead of an open-ended loop, the game gives you a number of objectives. So you have this sort of checklist of the 8 quests you get off the top that sort of points the player in the directions of where there's stuff. And then if you complete that checklist, someone who completes all the main quests in the demo will be advantaged if they buy the game. So when the game comes out later this year, you'll start with extra skill points, extra currency. So there is, hopefully, that tantalizes players. The other thing was discovering that, like, we can set up quests and then we can put continued in the main game.
Yeah,
and I think
we didn't have to write an ending for those.
Yeah, and I think that a player might be like, darn. But yeah, I think that we get to sort of launch some of the early mysteries and tantalize you with it. Hopefully the player will be left being like, I really wonder what happens. I wonder who was responsible for that dead body.
Action. Yeah.
I need to know. I've watched too much Columbo in my time. I need to know who did it.
Don't get me started on Columbo. Love Columbo.
I know you guys haven't started fully receiving back feedback yet from the fully launched demo, but from your playtesting side of things, like what are some of the big bets that you have found that have been paying off, and where are you feeling that maybe some things missed the mark, I should say, from what your first thoughts were compared to when it got actually into the player's hands?
Nothing missed the mark. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's an A+.
Yeah.
No, it's. I'd say we are in our, third round of playtesting. The first one was on sort of the main game, a rough build of the main game. And then we've done sort of 2 big rounds of playtesting of just the demo. And yeah, I think the biggest challenge was that we've got the investigation gameplay, the sort of more traditional adventure game, the trading sim, and then you take sort of what you generate in trading. And when you go into the wilds of the island, it's this sort of strategic puzzly resource sort of, I don't know, it's really cool. If you check out the trailer, it's whenever you see black and white and cards on screen, it's that gameplay. I think the biggest feedback we got was, I'm confused. Like, this is not being well enough tutorialized. It's not clear enough that it takes me too long for it to click. And also this feeling that the systems were not totally harmonized, that they weren't totally playing with each other. So we just wrapped sort of probably our final round of playtesting on the demo before we go back to playtesting the main game. And just having people playing it for the first time not saying those things, and saying that some of the things that were the biggest problems for folks are now people's favorite things. So to feel like not only have we solved the problem, but we've solved it so much that it's now reflecting how we dreamed it would be.
Yeah, really focusing on just making the UI approachable and connected with everything. That was time and focus well spent.
Yeah, the improvements, at least that I've seen on the UI front, have been night and day. And again, of course, a big shout out to a friend of the show, Ruan Fernando, for his insights on a lot of that. But I know even a lot of what the team has built from what the very first run through that I've played compared to the demo is, again, astonishingly night and day of just like so much better at leading the player of what they should be focusing on, what they need to do next, and, you know, kind of getting out of your own way so that the player can have that fun and excitement and again, peeling back the layers that is this game.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of a necessary on the rails part where it's, again, we're going to show you the main systems and show you how to navigate them. But I'm proud that you do get pretty quickly to the world opens up and suddenly you can sort of follow whichever thread you choose. And I think we are not making an open world game, but it has that open world feeling, kind of the way that Disco Elysium also has that, like it is a small sandbox, but it feels like there's sort of endless depth in all directions. And that game has a many million word count. We don't. Ours is more contained. But again, it's that feeling of like, oh, this is a real place inhabited by people that are lying to you. I need to sort of figure out what's going on.
Yeah. If you both had to give a spoiler-free yet very, like, you know, draw the listener in, what are some of or what is one maybe favorite quest of yours that is within the game that, you know, again, just to get your hooks in them, if you will, without giving too much away. And it can be demo, not demo, whatever you guys want.
This I don't know if it'll give too much away. I might have to scrub this from the edit, but someone in town is someone in town is responsible for the baker's daughter.
His daughter's what?
Oh, we'll give that away too.
Yeah,
it's in the demo. Someone in town is responsible for the baker's daughter's death. Joan's death. Find out what happened to Joan. It is someone in town.
Okay,
that's what
we're both going in things that sort of get started in the demo that don't pay off. The former governor that you're replacing, and you're sort of coming after the seat has been vacant for months and the colony's fallen into disrepair, went mad, and he also died. And there's question around what happened to him, and his widow is convinced that he was murdered. So my favorite quest is how you sort of investigating the former governor's murder, because everybody thought he lost his marbles, and the prevailing belief is that he jumped off a cliff. And so it's how do you push back against a town who the townspeople just don't believe you or don't think you're pursuing something that's not real. That's one of my favorites.
Okay, yeah, no more. You get nothing else.
Is how difficult is it to write these stories, not, you know, giving out a little bit at a time, these breadcrumbs without giving away too much of the final surprise?
It was, you know, that's one of the first thing I dove into, how to write a mystery, you know, and just getting different influences, different takes from different authors and writers about what makes a good mystery, how much do you dole out to the audience, when, that kind of thing, and the different levels of that. And then one of my favorite lessons about it, and I'll ramble a bit on this, is the types of clues. There's transparent, translucent, and opaque. And you've heard me go on this, but opaque clues are ones you can clearly see. You know, the person was shot at 5 p.m. Like the detective knows that, so the audience knows that. That's clear as day. Transparent clues are ones that you don't really, the audience, point of view of the audience, don't know, but the detective knows. So that kind of came out of nowhere. You can't see it. And that's like, oh, you're wearing green earrings, and that's the birthstone of May. So the killer was born in May, like something only the detective knows. A lot of kind of Sherlock things like that. But the translucent clues are the money clues. And those are the really good ones. And that's, you know, someone's dying. This is an example from the show Monk. Someone's dying and they say, 3FP, or no, it's, what is it?
3 Tahitian doors.
Yeah, 3 Tahitian doors eat pizzas, and he dies. The detective knows that's a clue, but doesn't know what the heck it means. And the audience, same thing. That should be important, but I don't know what the heck it means. And then later on the story, you see a license plate that's 3THFP or whatever. And so that's how the person who died memorizes things. And that's when it pieces together. you have the key, but you don't know what lock it goes into, kind of a thing. Those are the money clues. So we tried, to take that approach with everything, not make it just like, oh, this is something only I knew, and now the audience is learning it as well. Just really, give them a sniff, and then you find the source later. Kind of.
I love it. Very Sheep Detective of you both.
I was talking about that movie.
It's so good. It is so good. Now, it wouldn't be freaking cool indies if we weren't talking about the business and marketing side of things. So first and foremost, the game itself was featured on the Mix, which is a huge congratulations to both of you guys. How is the feeling when you first got the email or the notification saying that, hey, this game was accepted to be part of that incredible showcase?
I mean, it was stressful only that we needed to move up the timeline of a trailer that was sort of had started development, but now we suddenly needed it a week earlier. But no, it's a thrill, and it was really cool to be in the mix with there were a strange number of Toronto and Canadian indies also in that showcase. So that was neat to be shoulder to shoulder with studios that I admire locally and people I know and friends that I have. But I don't know, it's interesting because I think anyone paying attention sees that there were just so many showcases that week. There's so many showcases this month. It really feels like, in an amazing way, there's never been more. And also the challenge of how do you get your game seen? How do you cut through the noise with 20,000 plus games coming out a year? That sort of felt like it was playing out in those showcases. There was just so much cool stuff and so many cool announcements. This is not a marketing thing. Matt was over. We were watching it on my TV, which is behind us. And just people on the internet are awful, and people just like shit posting as it rolls. And then ours came on, and I feel like ours was one of the few where people quieted down to watch. And
there was still some shit posting.
Yeah, for sure, as there should be. But like, there was also people being like, "This looks cool, love the art style, blah blah blah." So no, it was cool, and it was great to see the bump and wish list that came with that, and that will hopefully like leverage into the demo launching soon. So hopefully it will help sort of that pivot, and then the demo will hopefully be the big one.
Yeah, and I'm guessing is being like featured within Mix, is that something now that when you move forward, when you're reaching out to creators and things along those lines, are you leveraging that, like, not only are we award-winning studio, we are featured on this showcase, like, are those types of things that you would use to kind of bump yourself up the queue, if you will, of trying to get noticed when it comes to reaching out to different creators and outlets?
For sure. I mean, my approach has always been finding the creators who align with the content. And I mean, that might be the wrong way to do it. Maybe I should just be looking at the biggest numbers. But for me, I feel like certainly with Lil Guardsman, it was the creators that found us who fell in love with the game and whose community fell in love with the game. So I think my preference is to find the people who dig the same stuff that sort of our game sort of nests into, and try to target the people who I'm like, this is your game. Like, and be strategic about that, and not say that to everyone, because people can detect bullshit. But be like based on how well this series that you did on Scarlet Hollow by the Black Tabby Games, who did Slay the Princess, like your audience loved that so much. Here's more of that thing that they loved. That's brand new, and that you can be one of the first. So for me, I think the best play is content alignment and brand alignment. So it's finding those people that like, it's not a stretch for their audience, and that they're just going to love it.
Definitely. And what channels have you guys been finding success in? Because look, like, I don't need to tell you, but like a narrative game is not the easiest game to market, right? Like, if we're looking at, Friendslop and all these other ones that just go insanely viral, I feel like that's like one side of the equation, and then narrative driven games are very much on the other side. So where have you been finding success, or, for anyone out listening to this episode who is making a narrative game, kind of being able to find that audience that is like, hey, these are our people. Like, these are the ones who do want to dig deeper, who want to follow these threads and actually figure out what's going on, as opposed to like, I just want to have mindless games in my like Steam library. No shade by any means, but you know what I mean? Like, it's 100%.
I think your game design and what you create is a marketing activity. So like with Lil Guardsman, from the very beginning, we were thinking, how are streamers, how are content creators going to play this with their community? And I'd say in a different way, we thought about that very early with Curse of Resthaven. With Curse of Resthaven, when you start the game, a number of variables are shuffled, and when you go out onto the island, there's like there are dozens and dozens and dozens of these expeditions, and the order you get them, and if you'll get them at all, is random. So we have tried to create a game that is narrative, but that also has high variability. So ideally, no two streamers will have the same playthrough. So I think in the game's DNA, we are trying to optimize for a communal experience, and one where there's lots of choices to make. So you can pull your community, pull the people watching, get direction. So I think there are things about our game that will feel really good streamed, but it is a challenge. I think narrative games are tough. But then I think about, there are visual novel streamers that will literally like play the visual novel, and our game isn't a visual novel. It's got a bit of that DNA, but they'll play a game 3 times just to explore all the possible routes and the possible paths. So it's funny, like we're kind of making a niche game. We're trying to make a game that's less niche than Lil Guardsman with the sort of colony sim stuff and the trading stuff. We're trying to invite more gamers into the tent. And I think horror is another tag that brings more folks into the tent. There's a huge rabid audience for horror. And the cool thing about horror, at least maybe less for games, but with film, people who like horror like all types of horror. Like they're going to love seeing Backrooms, and then they're going to love seeing an 80s slasher movie. So hopefully our brand of horror, even if someone is used to playing like a really tense sort of
Saw video games.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be inclined to like ours. Yeah, I think it's like to acknowledge your niche and to go hard with that niche, to find the creators who are doing the thing that you're doing, because those are your like super fans. Those are the people that are going to really evangelize your game, versus we're going to deploy a huge amount of budget into this massive streamer that's going to do it, but it's going to bounce right off their audience. So I think it's about focusing and specializing when it comes to your audience and your creators.
Very, very cool. Again, it's an uphill battle for sure, but I know if I had to entrust in 2 people that I know, you both are the ones to take on that immense, incredible challenge. So going back to the actual like studio side of things. Now, of course, we actually spoke about it a little earlier. Like Little Guardsman it shipped on time, it shipped on budget, it shipped on scope, right? Scott, you are the Batman master of the universe, and an incredible job on there. Now with Resthaven being a little bit bigger, more complex, a little bit different from your previous game, was the discipline a little like, was it harder this time around, or because you already had your chops wet, you're pretty good with keeping this one on rails?
I think the gift of Lil Guardsman is it got a little bit bigger from the prototype, but it really stayed like the game that we sold is pretty much exactly, with polish, the game that we pitched and sold to publishers is the game that we delivered later. I'd say the challenge with Curse of Resthaven is there were more question marks. That early prototype was fun and worked, and I think it de-risked the project, but I think we had to solve more things during production than we did with Lil Guardsman. It's not to say that we didn't. There were moments where we had to pivot based on publisher feedback with Lil Guardsman. But yeah, I mean, it was just so straightforward, and this game is not as straightforward. So I'd say it's felt tougher to keep scope from spiraling and to sort of discourage experimentation past a certain point. Game devs talk about things being good enough. There are some things in our game where, like, at this point, we're like, yep, that's acceptable, and then we have to move forward with the idea that we'll go back and tweak and polish sort of in the very last leg of production. But you never know. So I think the feeling of the Death Star trash compactor feels more acute in this game. It definitely feels, because it's bigger, because there's more going on, there's just more to do. But I don't know, it's not that different. It's art, and no 2 games are the same, but it's also, you have X budget, you have X months, and you have X people. And like, you just have to keep an eye on like, hey, are we burning time on the wrong thing at all times? And to have like those are uncomfortable conversations to have with team members sometimes, which is, I know you are really focused on this thing. It is something that a player will look at once, twice, like spend seconds on. We need to focus on this thing that the player is always going to be looking at. It's feeling comfortable and safe, having hard conversations and re-steering the team. I don't know. You witnessed that.
And I mean, coming from a writing point of view, when I first came on for Little Guardsman, in my mind, with wide eyes, Christmas in my eyes, whatever, I was like, oh, we can do anything. Here's our story. And we originally planned for 3 acts. And it was all going to culminate in this. But then at some point during production, we're like, you know what? We don't have time or resources right now for a third act. We got to get it done in two. And so then that kind of window, kind of closed here and we had to pivot. Going into this, we had a better understanding, at least narrative wise, what that scope was.
Yes.
Where, beginning and ending here and what we need to fill it with and the different storylines with that. So there was more of an empty room to play in, which I found more fun rather than like the great expanse of anything's possible and then having the doors going to close. I can't speak to, the other mechanics too much with that, but this time around, I enjoyed that, knowing what we had to do, getting that set, feeling comfortable, trusting yourself that that's locked rather than pivoting to, gates.
I think there's something helpful in just the mystery genre too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the facts are the facts. It's you're figuring out the why. So yeah, I think we had quite a defined, maybe 70% clarity very early of like, here's the story arc, here's what the game is going to do. And then the 30% that we fill in is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's the gravy.
With mystery, each beat has to progress you. Like, I mean, with all stories, obviously all narratives it does, but with mysteries, the clues given about who the person is, who the killer is, who the grand villain is, it has to progress. And so you can't do that endlessly, and you can't do that where nothing progresses. Yeah. So you have to have the right speed of movement, and that can only take you so many beats until you have to finally reveal,
But yeah, I mean, we have definitely had to kill our darlings, which is the expression where you're cutting things you're excited about. But it all ends up making a tighter, better experience. So yeah, I mean, it's hard when people's feelings are attached to things that need to be cut, and that was very real on this game. That was real on the last game.
It'll be real on the next.
It will be real on the next one, which will be a friend slop game coming 2027.
2D fighter friend stop game from the studio that made Lil Guardsman and Curse of Resthaven.
Yeah,
you heard it here first, folks. Breaking news. All right, Scott. This one is actually a little more directed to you. Now, I cannot bring up the name Scott Christian in Toronto without you being praised for just you being that glue guy within the Toronto game scene. And for devs who are listening to this episode who might be, around the globe or within their own city, what advantages has unlocked for you just being part of your local community and something that, might be overlooked by people who just kind of stick in their own world and developing their own games as opposed to getting out there and seeing what else is there within their own town or in their country?
Yeah, I mean, we're a fully remote studio. Well, welcome to my basement. That's where we're coming to you from. Yeah, I don't think you can do it from a what is the strategic advantage here. I think you should do it because like it will help your emotional and mental health. Like I've just connected with so many friends and folks in the industry that like helps when I'm filled with crippling self-doubt, when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, to just like be out there with people who are also doing similar things is such a great feeling. And it can feel very lonely. And I'm lucky to have a very supportive team, but also my role is unique on the team. So like, I don't have anyone that I can commiserate with about how annoying it is to manage Matt Bernard. So I need to find that. Yeah. But no, I think if you go out and you're networking with an agenda and with strategy, people can smell it. And I think the hard thing in an industry that's scarce right now, where like there's so much unemployment, there's so few opportunities, like it's hard. I wish our studio was 5 times as big and I could hire hundreds of people, because in Toronto, there is so much talent. In Canada, there's so much talent, and that talent has never been more unemployed as studios keep getting shuttered and corporate decisions keep laying waste to great teams. New to this industry, like I sort of started, I don't know, five years ago. I don't know what I don't know. So getting out there is like, I need to talk to people. I need to see how other people are doing it. I need to like share the challenges that we're facing, again, either to get moral support or to get suggestions of how to solve it. But yeah, it's just been a blast. And the line that my parents chuckled at is someone said like, "Oh, Scott, you're the Kevin Bacon of Toronto games." Just because like I like making friends. I like connecting with people, and I think the power move is connecting people who can help each other when it doesn't advantage you at all. Like to recognize that like, oh, Mike needs to meet this person. There's nothing in it for me, but like that's going to enhance them. And I think that's like, I don't know if it's unique about Toronto or Canada, but it's certainly a feature of the Toronto scene and the Canadian scene is there's a lot of transparency and a lot of generosity, even when we're all struggling, even when we're all sort of competing for the same finite grant pie, or we're all banging down the same publishers' doors and investors' doors. Like, I think we are genuinely like looking out for each other and taking care of each other, and hopefully lifting up the next generation of game devs and studios.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, I agree with everything that you said there. And I also want to just take a second to thank you for all that you've done for even myself. You were one of the first people that I met within the industry. And, you know, welcomed me with open arms, and we went for lunch and everything there. And then since you've introduced me to a number of incredible individuals around the city. So again, you are truly that glue guy. And you know, from myself, I just want to say I appreciate all that you've done.
Hey, I appreciate that, but like, what would the fun be if we didn't do that?
100%.
What would the point be if we were just building in isolation and don't have like a crew to share it with? So I don't know. And Matt, you've been to stuff. You're around. It's interesting because Matt and I both come from theater, and so often I'll turn to Matt and I'll be like, oh, this feels just like the Toronto Fringe tent. So the Fringe is I think a lot of people know what it is, but an indie theater festival. And like, there's such a community is such a feature of theater people. So I feel like we kind of just presume that.
I mean, it's the old improv adage, it's yes and rather than no buts. Like, we're talking to people, it's yes and, you know, everyone's, if you have that energy going into it, it's just going to raise everybody up.
Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. Well, gentlemen, the way that we wrap off every single episode here on Freaking Cool Indies is to play it forward and to give you guys a spotlight to shine on another indie dev or another studio that you have been loving. Some fun facts for you both. I actually have 3 guests that have named you guys as their as their play it forward shout out. So again, a lot of love from the Toronto scene to both of you there. So
kind.
That's cool. I know. I wanted to surprise you with that fun fact, but I will pass over the baton to you guys to be able to play it forward and shout out a game that you think deserves to get more eyeballs and more ears on what they are currently building.
Sure. I'm going to shout out Styrax Studio, which is in Halifax, and they're making a game called Button Man that is another sort of weird genre mashup, love song to adventure games, but that also brings beat 'em up elements. And it's set in sort of Prohibition era Halifax, and I think it's one of my most anticipated titles, and the folks there are super cool. So check out Button Man by Styrax Studios.
Amazing. Matt?
And my choice, I'm, late to the game with this, but it's just a game that has caught my attention. And I don't know how indie or small it is, but it's Viewfinder from Sad Owl and Thunderful Publishing. And just the game just blows my mind. How they thought of it, how they did it. I finally got the chance to play it. I've been talking about it for so long and finally got my hands on it. And it just lived up to my excited teenage boy puzzle mind of like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I just, the brains behind that, I just want to say thank you. I absolutely love it. Blows my mind. I don't know what galaxy you come from, but it's super cool.
Yeah, those are the Viewfinder is one of those games that when you look at and you watch the trailer, A, you get it right away, but B, you just sit there and you're like, how do they come up? How do they come up with this? Yeah. And then how do they program? Just so many questions. So many questions, but that is awesome. Gentlemen, I appreciate you both for taking time out of your day. It is official. Well, it's been official for a long time, but you guys are freaking cool indies. Thank you very much. This is my gavel here. So it is official. You are in the books as being 2 freaking cool indies. And again, I just want to say thank you for jumping on. And for all of our listeners, again, go check out the demo for Curse of Resthaven. Everything will be in the description below. So follow along, give the studio a follow, download the demo, and give it a shot, because we have to see who killed the baker's daughter. I need to know now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna rest until I figure out. As soon as we hit stop, I'm going to figure out who killed the baker's daughter. But no, gentlemen, I appreciate it. And for all of our listeners out there, keep being awesome, keep creating, and we will see you on the next one.